Hey everyone, it's Bill here again, and today I'm going to show you a pretty cool trick that will help you to improve a couple of key aspects of your piano playing and start to create a richer, more professional sound on the piano keyboard. Those two aspects are evenness and control, and they're both to do with the way you use your hands and your fingers to apply force to the piano keyboard to make sounds. Now, evenness and control are major issues in piano playing, but a lot of people, especially those who are teaching themselves, don't even really know that they exist as issues. If your playing sounds kind of clanking and ragged, no matter how much you practice, you're pressing all the right notes and everything, but things still don't quite sound right, then evenness and control may be the things you need to address. You're going to need a little bit of technology for this tutorial, namely a digital piano with MIDI capability. Now, most digital pianos have MIDI capability, so as long as you're on digital, you should be okay. You're also going to need a desktop or a laptop computer quite close by, and you're going to need a way of connecting the two, which is almost always going to be a USB cable. You're also going to need an internet connection, which I'm guessing you already have because you're watching this, but you won't need any specialist software, and you're not going to have to download anything because all the tools that we're going to use are browser based. So as long as you've got an internet connection and a browser, you'll be absolutely fine. Okay, let's get going. First of all, let's address what evenness and control actually are. When you play the piano, you use your fingers, which are controlled from your hands, which you suspend above the piano keyboard using your arm. Now, I'm a really bad example to follow here, by the way, because I have this odd bone structure in my lower arm called radial ulnar synostosis, and it makes me hold my hands kind of in a weird way on the piano keyboard. So whatever you do, don't copy my hand position, but the underlying point I'm making is still the same. As human beings, we're kind of stuck with this fingers, hand, arm setup for playing the piano, and it's pretty unstable. The most unstable part of it is at your fingers, basically, and that's because of the way they are engineered. Each of your fingers is attached to your hand slightly differently. So the thumb kind of sits on its side, with loads of muscles here. It's really maneuverable, it's really strong. But your fifth finger, your pinky, is much weaker and much less maneuverable. The fingers in the middle, 2, 3 and 4, all sit kind of at different angles and have varying strengths. Okay, so what that means is that when your fingers strike the piano keyboard kind of in an unnatural way, in an untrained way, they don't all do so equally. The thumb, which is really strong, tends to go, "Rah, I'm the thumb," and hit the keyboard really hard, but your pinky, which is really weak, tends to hit it in quite a light way. So if you hear a beginner playing a scale of C major, it tends to sound a bit like this. Okay, big thumps on the thumb and just a little squeak from the pinky up there. So when we learn the piano, what we really work hard to do is to maintain evenness. Okay, if we want to play, say, a string of notes with all the same force, and control if we want to vary the force in a way that we decide. Say we want to play a crescendo. Okay, and evenness and control are basically about overriding your fingers' natural tendency to do their own thing in terms of the force they exert and getting them to do what you want them to do, okay? And they are basically what underlie that kind of easy, smooth, natural flowing, organic sound that good pianists have. If your playing is okay in terms of just hitting the right notes at the right time, but it has this kind of ropey and ragged sound, then like I said, evenness and control are what you need to work on. Okay, so we've decided we need to improve our evenness and control, but to do so we need to overcome one big challenge, and that's this. We're dealing with pretty subtle differences in sounds and movement here. So when you're in the heat of the moment, when you're playing the piano, it's quite difficult to judge subjectively how even and how controlled your playing is, especially if you're a relatively inexperienced pianist. So what do you do about that? How do you judge, what you sound like in terms of evenness and control, and what kind of progress you're making with those things? Well, you could ask a teacher, and that's always a handy thing to do. A teacher can give you really good feedback on this, but if that's not possible, or even if it is, you can also use this pretty cool trick that I was talking about, which I'm going to show you now. The very first thing we need to do is to take a couple of minutes to dive into the technology we're going to use here. It's all pretty simple. So here's my digital piano. It's a Nord Piano 2, just to answer the question that people are always asking on my YouTube channel. And over here on my desk is my laptop, okay? What I'm doing is taking care to make sure my laptop is somewhere safe and secure. It's always tempting to balance it on top of the piano, yeah, but that's a bit risky, especially when you've got cables lying about and you don't want it to be falling off. So I've got it over here on my desk. Between the two is this red USB cable. Now that cable is plugged into the USB out port on the back of my digital piano, and most digital pianos have those. And in a second, I'm going to be plugging the other end into my laptop. Before I do that, I'm going to open a browser window and go to bandlab.com, bandlab.com, and sign in. Okay, yeah, if you don't have an account, it's really easy to create one. You can sign in with Facebook or Google, or or create your own account with BandLab or whatever. I just sign in with Facebook. Okay, so here's my home screen in BandLab. You can get to this really quickly. What I'm going to do now is go to the top right hand corner and click this button marked Create, the big red button. Here we go. Okay, so BandLab is basically a DAW, a digital audio workstation, an application that is a virtual recording studio that you can use to record and edit sounds in multiple tracks. Now, there are lots and lots of DAWs on the market, from super expensive professional things like Logic Pro to cheap and even free products, yeah? Now, these days, even freeware DAWs are so good that you can create professional level stuff in them if you know what you're doing. If you have a Mac, by the way, then you get a DAW free of charge in the form of GarageBand, which I love. It's really clean and simple, but actually very powerful. But I'm using BandLab today because it's also very cool and it's cross-platform, so you don't have to install stuff, you don't need a Mac. Whatever platform you're using, it should just work straight out of your browser. Okay, so here we go. The first thing I'm going to do is click this big green button here marked Instruments. Okay. And lo and behold, straight out of the box, we have a virtual grand piano, okay? And that's our default instrument, and that's handy because it's exactly the sound that we're going to be using. So what I'm going to do now is take my USB cable, the one I've got coming out of the back of my piano, and plug it into my laptop. When I do that, you should see a notification appear in the bottom left hand corner of the BandLab window here saying that it's detected the MIDI feed coming in from my piano. You might also see one in the top right, by the way, saying that GarageBand has also picked it up. That's just because I've got GarageBand running in the background to pick up my vocals, okay? So don't worry about that one. It's the bottom left notification we want to see. So let's plug in. And there we go, Nord Piano MIDI output status connected. So we know that BandLab is picking up the MIDI signal from my piano. The other thing I'm just going to do here is make sure that in the MIDI device drop down, I've got Nord Piano MIDI output selected. Okay, if your MIDI device for some reason doesn't work, just check that checkbox, okay, and check that drop down and make sure that you've got the right thing selected, okay. If for any other reason it doesn't work, then audio settings can be a bit funny. You might have to go into your computer's audio settings and just play around, but BandLab is pretty good at picking up MIDI instruments. So now if we play the piano a little bit, okay, we can hear that it is, making a piano sound for us, and that piano sound is not coming from my piano. Okay, that is BandLab making the sound. It's BandLab's own, what we might call its onboard piano sound. All my piano is sending MIDI data about which note I'm pressing, about how hard I'm pressing it, and so on. So if I press the C below middle C, okay, the actual note is being produced by BandLab, and you can see it down here on the virtual keyboard. Okay, that's the C below middle C. We can move the octaves up and down. If we go up one, that's middle C being hit now. So that's quite useful to have just there. So now let's try recording something. Yeah, we have here this track. Up here we have the control buttons, what you might call the transport buttons, and I'm going to hit record. We get a click in. We've got the tempo set here, 120 beats per minute. Not really relevant to what we're doing, but worth knowing. That click was at 120 BPM. And now you can see the playhead is moving here and we are recording. So let's play some notes. Yeah, there There we go, and now let's hit stop again, or the spacebar will do it, and there we have, as you can see, a load of MIDI data has appeared. So if I get hold of the play head here, which is this line, click it and drag it and hit play, that's what I played just now. Okay, so we've managed to do some recording. Now, can you see these bars on the track? Those basically represent notes. Each one of those bars is a note that I played, and how long the bar is represents how long the note lasted, and how high or low it is in the track shows how shows its pitch, basically how high or low a note it was. Let's take a closer look at those by double clicking on the track, and that opens the MIDI editor. Okay, and we can see the notes in much more detail now. This is what we call a piano roll. Okay, so we have a piano keyboard at the side here showing what the different notes are. They're almost universal in DAW. It's not quite universal, but it's the most common way of doing things. And so you can see how, you know, what the pitch of the notes are and how long the notes are relative to the underlying beat. Okay, so remember that our underlying beat is 120 beats per minute, though I wasn't making any effort to play in time there. Now what we can do here is select any of these notes. So let's pick this one. Okay, and you'll notice that as I click it, it sounds. Yeah, so that is an F, and it was quite a long lasting F, and we get various bits of information about that F, and if we look over here, we can in particular see the velocity information. Okay, now different notes have different velocities, so if we pick another one, so this F is 72, if we pick another one, if we pick this C, we can see that's a 72 as well, and let's go for this one, that F down there was a 63, let's try this one, that C was a 79, okay, so they're roughly in the same range. Now velocity is a measure of how hard I hit the key when I pressed it, and this is the good stuff. Okay, that green bar tells us exactly how much pressure I put on the key when I played it, and velocity is going to be a number between, I think it's between 0 and 127. You'd have to hit it pretty hard to get a 127, but that's basically what it is. Now let's imagine that I want to play a scale. Let's hit record again. Let's go back to the start. Here's our click in. Let me play a scale. Just up to the top there, okay, just the 8 notes. Now what I can do is look at those notes and compare the velocities. So that C was 64, the D was 73, 65 on the E, 63 on the F, 65, 72, 70, 73, okay? So that is showing me how evenly I played the scale just by comparing the numbers here. Okay, so the C was 64, D 73, so I was landing maybe a little bit hard on that 73, and this enables me basically, as I said, to show exactly how evenly I was playing that scale. Let's have a go at testing my control. Okay, let me just hit record again. Let me take the playhead back to the start there, and this time I'm going to play a scale, but I'm going to try to play a crescendo. I'm going to try and get louder as I go. Let's see how I do. Here we go. There we go. A little bit uneven at the start, but let's see. Here are our notes down in the MIDI editor. So there's my first middle C. 48 is the velocity number. The next one is 55, so good, I'm going in the right direction. Then 52, a little bit too weak on that third there. Then 66 on the F, so back in the right direction. Then 82 on the G, which is maybe a little bit too far too soon. 88 on the A. 87 on the B, so the A and the B weren't really crescendoing maybe as much as they could be, and 85 at the top there. So what I did in that scale was, yes, I managed a crescendo, but it wasn't as controlled as it could be. I managed to start getting louder in the first few notes, and then had a little bit of a dip and then leveled off. Yeah, let's try doing it again, see if I can get it a little bit better this time. Here we go. and the C was 45. 61, maybe too much of a leap. 65, going in the right direction. 73, 84, 95, 96, 98. Okay, so again, not perfectly even, but better that time. Okay, my control was slightly better. My crescendo was you know, slightly more even and controlled. I'm not really obsessing about those numbers being, you know, each one being 5 more than the last or whatever. You're never going to achieve that amount of perfection, but it's about looking at the overall pattern and just seeing where you've got the kind of uneven bits, okay, in the scale. And now let's see how even my chord playing is. So once again, just let me delete that bit of track. All I do to do that, by the way, is click it and then hit delete on the keyboard, and off it goes. And this time I'm going to play some chords. So I'm going to hit record again, and I'll just play some chords fairly randomly in the right hand. Let me stop it, and here we have the chord shapes I was playing. Can you see how the data is appearing differently? Okay, we've got the notes stacked on top of each other as we would expect because we're playing chords. So there's the first one, C, E and G. Yeah, MIDI data is really quite easy to read if it's simple. Okay, you know, it's quite an efficient way of visualizing music if it's simple. Once it starts to get really complex, then it's much harder to read than written score, but in fairly simple situations like this, it's quite easy to see what's going on. So let's just have a look at how even my chords were by once again looking at the velocity numbers. So that first C chord, I hit the C with my thumb with 46 velocity, then the E 52, a bit stronger, and then the G a bit stronger still, 53. Okay, so probably what that's a result of is me consciously trying to avoid not hitting too hard with my thumb. You know, that's kind of years of training, not trying to whack down too hard with the thumb. Let's have a look at another one. Let's look at this one here. And I've got 56 on the, so it was an F chord, 56 on the A with my thumb, 63 on the C with my second, and 58 again with my fifth on the C. So they are all within a reasonable range of each other, I would say. Okay, maybe I could do with just a little bit more weight on the thumb there, or a little bit less on the middle note, because the 56 on the A and the 58 on the C, they're good and evenly together, but I'm pushing just a little bit too hard in the middle there. Not really a big deal, okay, they're well within sort of acceptable tolerances. I would say that for most chord playing, you know, if you're a sort of a reasonably good amateur musician, then kind of within 10 either way is good, and if you can get the velocities within 5 either way, then you're doing really well. Okay, so now let's take this back to the piano keyboard and think about how we can integrate this data into our practice. We now know that we can study our evenness and control, look at the velocity numbers and see exactly how well we're doing. How do we use that when we're starting to practice? The very first thing to say is that I don't think you should be using this technique all the time in every practice session. Once numbers are involved, it's very easy to get obsessed about it. It's really easy to kind of focus on getting everything, you know, within 2 or 3 velocity numbers of it, and that isn't what we're about here at all. Okay, we're not robots, we're not trying to play like machines. This is a tool that we should use every now and then just to check our progress, but for doing that it's very, very useful. When it actually comes to getting better at evenness and control, what I'm going to do is give you 3 quick strategies that you can work together with the data from the system that I've just taught you. We can summarize those strategies in 3 words: awareness, focus and exercise. So strategy number 1, awareness, is just to be aware that evenness and control are issues, that they matter and that you should take account of them when you practice. As I said earlier, a lot of people, especially those of you who are teaching yourself piano or who are coming back to the instrument years after you had lessons, a lot of people don't even realise that these things matter. Now that you know that they do, you can factor them in when you practice. You know, you're playing your thing, whatever it is, and now you can say to yourself, you know, that chord, am I going at it with exactly the control I need? Is it really even? Of course, you now know that you can check exactly how even it is, but the most important thing is to be aware of the possibility that it's not even. Okay, that is the first step. Strategy number 2, focus, is about picking out short sections from pieces of music you're working on and really paying attention to your evenness and control just in those sections, yeah, and working hard to improve it. Now that might be music that you're learning from a written score, you know, so you might have a bit of Mozart on the go. And you might say to yourself, yeah, this kind of scale work in the right hand, could that be more controlled? Okay, all you need to do is record it into your DAW, BandLab, whatever you're using, and look at the velocity numbers. Then practice it for a few days, come back, have those velocity numbers improved? Are they closer to the kind of the level of control you want? They're not necessarily all going to be the same, because you might be aiming for a little bit of a crescendo or a diminuendo, but you should be able to see if any fingers are kind of really erratic, if you get any real thumping on your thumb, for example. It also works with improvisation. Say you're playing some jazz piano with chords in the left hand. Okay, so you want to see, are those chords nice and even? Again, check them out in the DAW. What about all this right hand stuff I've got going on? Is the stress in the right place? Again, put it into BandLab, put it into your DAW, and you can find out. It's one of those situations where kind of focusing on just 1 or 2 small sections like that can help you improve your technique across the whole piece, and indeed across your whole playing ability. Strategy number 3 is exercise, and this is the least glamorous of the 3, but maybe the most useful. I want you to work on your exercises, your scales and your arpeggios, but especially your scales. If you don't practice scales, then start today, even if it's just for 5 minutes a day. You can find all the notes and the fingerings either online or in a book like the ABRSM Manual of Scales. And really focus on making each note as evenly weighted as you can. When I was at university, my piano teacher, who realised that I didn't have much talent as a classical pianist, made me spend weeks and weeks and weeks just working on the C major scale in separate hands, getting it as even and legato as possible. And I'm still not that great, but I'm a lot better than I was because of that. Yeah, it was a terrible grind, but it made all the difference to my playing. Finally, when we're doing all this stuff, there's something important I want you to remember, okay? That is that there's no such thing as perfection. You're very, very unlikely ever to get your scales and your chords perfectly even and controlled under all possible circumstances, yeah? Those velocity numbers are never going to be in exactly the right spot in every single instance. So don't get too obsessed, like I said, don't get too obsessed with getting all the numbers right. Quote marks, yeah? This is one of those situations where the best can be the enemy of the good, yeah? Work on this stuff for sure, it'll make a big difference to your playing, but don't let it drive you nuts. Don't spend so much time trying to get your evenness and control right that you're not learning other stuff. Okay, so that's it for another tutorial. I really hope you enjoyed it. As some of you know, I'm actually in the middle of writing another book at the moment, which is kind of why I haven't got as many tutorials coming out as I usually have. That book hasn't got a title yet, or it has, but I haven't finally decided on it, so I'm not going to tell you. But it's going to be out kind of April, May time, and it's going to be about general skills to help you improve as a musician. So practice strategies, ways of speeding up your learning, kind of evidence-based stuff about how to make lessons stick, especially if you're an older learner, all of that kind of stuff. So watch this space, because a lot of the kind of stuff I've been talking about today kind of has its root, kind of has its thinking in the work I've been doing on that book. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please do hit the little red subscribe button in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. Check out the Facebook, Twitter and Instagram links in the description text right underneath this video. If you have any questions or comments, stick them in the comments thread. I'm always pleased to hear from people. And please do check out my books, How to Really Play the Piano, the Stuff Your Teacher Never Taught You, 7 Studies in Pop Piano, and an Introduction to Cocktail Piano, for those of you who like playing kind of lovely, rich, cheesy cocktail sounds. Okay, there we go. I'll let you go away and get on with practicing your evenness and control, and I'll see you next time.